discussions. I would think that you believe that this no vote has put the Greek nation in pretty serious danger.
Well, let's be honest, it was a risky strategy. So what I think they've tried to do is pile on the PR pressure onto the creditors, because it really has become a PR nightmare for them now. It's not just the case that the Greeks themselves have voted overwhelmingly no, but it's that there's a groundswell around Europe in support of them as well, especially in the likes of Spain and one or two of the other more marginal economies. So there's that to consider. But equally, I think the point needs to be made that it's very difficult to implement any kind of rules and regulations onto a population that won't accept them. And I think, if nothing else, what this vote has done is it's shown the creditors that here's a population that's just not prepared to accept this set of reforms. So it's not to say that the Greeks are backing away from austerity. I think it's actually incorrect to say that Greeks are against austerity. They realize that they need to go through reforms. They just don't like the reforms that they are being asked to implement, because it's the same set of reforms that they've been asked to implement over all of these years, and yet 6 years down the line, we've got Greece with its own version of the Great Depression, having effectively shrunk by some 25% and likely to shrink even further. So it's not that the Greeks haven't reformed. In fact, I would say that what Greece has done is one of the biggest reform processes in modern history, especially in peacetime. So there's been a significant amount done, yet the Greeks, through all of that, feel poorer now than they ever did before, and feel like they're on the receiving end of a broader EU experiment. And I think this is what it's come down to. When the Greek population feels like it simply has nothing more to lose, they'll take the chance. And this is what I think unfolded on Sunday, and we're sitting in this position now.
But even though they voted no, I understand a lot of the Greek people want to remain in the Eurozone. So Tsipras wants to get those talks going again. If he gets a significant debt reduction, this would be a PR coup. It would be incredible that he has done this. But you've also mentioned that there are those other countries who then will probably say, but what about us? So that's very difficult for the creditors who have loaned money, for the German people who have paid tax so that their government can loan money. What do you think could happen here? Well,
I mean, you raise some very important points. So here's the thing. I think 6 months ago, Greece perhaps didn't need to have this level of debt restructuring. But because the economy over the past 5-6 months since Syriza has come in has been impacted so negatively, especially through the course of the past week or so, and likely still in the weeks ahead, what's happened is the game has changed. And the IMF alluded to that. The IMF has effectively come out and said, well, as things stand right now, they've gotten so bad that Greece, in fact, does need a debt write-down. Now, here's the thing. You can now sell this a little bit differently, especially with what's happened over the weekend. Because whereas before, I think all these other 18 countries would have wanted to show their constituencies that they are fighting for them, that they are not going to allow Greece to just get away with having debt written off, now they're sitting in a far more precarious position, precisely because of what the IMF has highlighted, that Greece's debt, as it stands right now, is unsustainable. So you've got two options. Neither of them are particularly positive, but the better option to go would be to sell this as a haircut towards Greece to get them on a more sustainable path, so that you can still preserve the other 70-odd% that they are owed. The other alternative would be for Greece to exit the Eurozone, but in that alternative, you'd probably lose a hell of a lot more. And in answering to your constituency, it might be that much more difficult for you to convince that your constituency that the 100% loss or the 80 or 90% loss that you sustained was in fact worthwhile, and Greece having left the Eurozone. So it's a set of difficult choices that are now ahead of people. But I think finally we're at the point where there is no more room. The Greek banks are effectively shut. They cannot operate like this. A modern-day economy is on the verge of a major collapse because the banking system is not operating. So there is no more time. If decisions are going to be taken, they're going to be taken in the coming week, possibly 2, but not longer than that, because I just think the population won't be able to accept it. And so this is where we're at. We're at the position where the choices left are no longer good choices. It's about choosing the less bad choice. And I'm hoping that some sense prevails, both from Europe's side and from Greece's side to find a compromise and put this to bed once and for all.
Okay, so say a 30% haircut for Greece. How are other countries looking? Cyprus also receiving a bailout. Will they then hope for the same? So you can kind of have a blanket new precedent, I suppose, for all these indebted nations.
Right, so I think we need to be careful here. I mean, we attribute a number like 30%, but there's different ways of being able to produce a haircut, so to speak. One doesn't necessarily only have to look at reducing the nominal number of that debt. What you can do is reduce it in real terms over time. So they can, for example, extend that debt over a longer period of time and offer it at a substantially lower interest rate, whereby if the economy is growing at a rate far higher than what the interest rate is, in real terms, through the course of time, you can eat into that and make it more palatable and gradually bring it down. It's almost as if it's almost akin to offering free money, if you like, over a prolonged period of time to allow you to pay back the nominal number in real terms. In fact, what it amounts to is nothing more than a haircut.
If this doesn't happen, if there is no deal in the coming days, there are some serious people saying actually maybe Greece will be better off if it goes to its own currency. People like me can go on cheap holidays to Greece. Tourism will flourish. Their exports will flourish. And that's also been a strong argument. But I guess down the line, there will always have to be some sort of deal if they want to be reintegrated into the global community.
So, Francis, what I keep reminding my clients is that austerity is a consequence. It's not a choice. The no vote doesn't really change that. So by that I mean that there is going to be a restructuring of that Greek economy, whether they sit in the Eurozone or whether they exit the Eurozone. It's going to happen in slightly different ways depending on how it ultimately turns out. It's not to say that Greece cannot operate outside the Eurozone, but they're going to have to manage themselves extremely carefully should they exit. They're going to have to be prudent fiscally and prudent in a monetary way so as not to create a hyperinflationary environment which ultimately produces an even bigger recession. So it's not to say that simply stepping out of the Eurozone is going to resolve all their problems. It'll come with some benefits for sure and return their sovereignty, but it's going to come at a cost. And make no mistake, that cost is going to be quite significant.
An immediate pain for pensioners and people with savings and things like that.
Well, an immediate pain, I think, for everybody concerned. What might come out of that is quite interesting, though. If they manage themselves very carefully, what Europe needs to be petrified of is that, in fact, Greece makes a success story out of that exit. Because then all of a sudden, the other marginal countries within the Eurozone are going to stand up, take notice, and think to themselves, hang on a second, perhaps what Greece did is the better option at the end of the day, and perhaps we should be considering the same, which brings into question the Eurozone.
This is so fascinating, and we'll see how it pans out over coming days. Thank you for your time, George Glynos from ETM Analytics. Well, traders and economists say that the South African economy